Welcome to the Explainer. So, today we're taking a bit of a cinematic journey back in time. You know, when most of us hear the name Pompeii, our minds instantly jump to ash, ruin, and those tragic archaeological casts. But to truly understand this place, we need to completely erase that image from our minds. We're going to explore this legendary city not as a monument of destruction, but as a living, breathing, vibrant community right before everything changed.
Nearly 2,000 years ago, beneath the shadow of Mount Vesuvius, Pompeii was not a ruin. That single thought is just loaded with intense dramatic irony, right? Picture the terracotta rooftops, the busy public fountains, the crowded streets. This was a thriving, prosperous Roman city full of people who were completely, blissfully unaware of their impending doom. To them, Vesuvius was literally just a beautiful backdrop to their everyday lives.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. A thriving Roman city. Daily life in Pompeii.
If you were to literally walk through these streets in the 1st century CE, you'd be shoulder to shoulder with a deeply diverse population. This wasn't just some exclusive playground for the rich. Much like any modern city today, it was home to merchants brokering deals across the Mediterranean, highly skilled craftsmen, stoneworkers, ordinary families just raising their kids, and local politicians eagerly campaigning for office. These were real people, wearing their tunics and togas, going about perfectly familiar everyday routines.
And the city itself? It was brilliantly designed to support that routine. Imagine the sensory experience of walking through Pompeii. You'd step across ancient stone paving, using these specially raised stepping stones just across the streets. You'd hear water splashing in the public fountains, and the distinct, rhythmic clatter of wooden cartwheels leaving deep tracks in the stone pavement as donkeys pulled them through the narrow alleys.
Now, the absolute vibrant economic heart of all this activity was the market. Pompeii was plugged into a massive Mediterranean economy. It's like a giant web of trade. While local Roman farms supplied the daily bread, fruit, and vegetables for bronze coins, merchants were exchanging silver Roman coins for olive oil, wine stored in giant ceramic amphorae, textiles and spices brought in from across the entire Roman world.
Now, what's really interesting here is just how detailed our knowledge of their everyday bread-making process actually is. Bread was the absolute, undisputed staple of Roman life. In Pompeii's bakeries, blindfolded donkeys, actually real donkeys, would walk in circles to turn these large stone mills, grinding the grain into flour. Then, bakers worked together to shape the dough before sliding it into massive, roaring brick ovens, pulling out these perfectly round, fresh loaves to feed the whole city.
Moving right along to Section 2, Daily Life and Culture, Society in Pompeii. Walking down just a single street, you'd witness enormous wealth literally right next to profound modesty. On one side, you've got beautiful courtyard gardens, bronze lamps, and shallow pools catching rainwater. But right next door, crowded, loud, incredibly basic urban workshops and simple living quarters completely integrated right into the commercial spaces.
But no matter where they lived, almost everyone eventually headed to the public baths. Think of these less like a modern bathroom and much more like a modern cafe and gym combo where everybody just hung out. They were magnificent structures with marble surfaces and vaulted ceilings. They had cold, warm, and hot rooms ingeniously heated by a brick hypocaust system. That's basically an ancient underfloor heating system where hot air and steam from a furnace circulated right beneath their feet. I mean, people pay thousands for heated floors today. The Romans had it figured out 2 millennia ago.
And as they moved from the baths back to their homes, they were completely surrounded by art. Color was literally everywhere in Pompeii. Ordinary homes were decorated with stunning fresco-inspired artwork. We're talking vivid, intricate scenes featuring lush gardens, colorful birds, flowers, and even wild architectural illusions that made a flat wall look like a window into a mythological world.
When it came time to eat, their diet brilliantly utilized the rich resources of the Mediterranean. Meals could range from simple staples to incredibly elaborate feasts. But one thing you'd find almost everywhere was garum. Think of it as the ancient Roman equivalent of Worcestershire sauce, a fermented fish sauce that gave their food a massive punch of umami flavor. They'd enjoy it alongside clay pots filled with olives, grapes, lentils, fish, and of course, plenty of wine poured into ceramic cups. Beyond the home, public life was just buzzing. Thousands of people gathered at the amphitheater for grand spectacles. Politicians were actively campaigning, painting their slogans right onto the city walls. And spiritually, they really covered all their bases, from grand temples for Roman gods to small, intimate household shrines where they burned incense to honor their own domestic spirits.
Which brings us to Section 3, Earthquake shadows, geological warnings.
So the crucial point is that Pompeii was actually no stranger to geological instability. In 62 CE, years before the infamous eruption, a highly destructive earthquake struck the region and heavily damaged the city. For the decades that followed, the city was in a constant state of rebuilding. By the summer of 79 CE, seeing scaffolding and fresh plaster was just a totally normal part of daily life. It really shows something about human psychology, that residents had completely normalized the instability. The scars of that 62 CE earthquake were everywhere. If you looked around, you'd see stone workers, painters, and bricklayers replacing massive stone blocks and restoring cracked frescoes. Pompeii continued to function as a living, breathing city. The residents were entirely misinterpreting the Earth's warning signs as just another mundane repair project.
Imagine a beautiful, warm summer sunset over Pompeii. People are walking, eating, carrying goods. But behind this ordinary life stood a mountain that had shaped the region for thousands of years. And no one in Pompeii knew what it was about to become. They just went about their evenings, looking up at that mountain, completely oblivious to the unimaginable power building just beneath its surface.
And finally, Section 4. The volcano awakens, the final days. It's the summer of 79 CE. While historians still debate the exact date of the eruption, to the citizens waking up that morning, it was just another mundane summer day. The bakeries were firing up their ovens, the merchants were setting out their produce, and the baths were getting those hypocaust furnaces burning hot. But then, the atmospheric shifts began. It wasn't an immediate explosion. It was this agonizing, suspenseful buildup, a strange, distant rumble echoing through the stone streets. Flocks of birds suddenly panicking and taking flight. A slight tremor felt through the leather soles of their sandals. Ceramic cups subtly vibrating on wooden tables. People likely paused, looking briefly toward the mountain, totally unaware of what these changes truly meant. This brings us to the last ordinary moment. The final baker removing a round loaf of bread from the brick oven. The final merchant pulling the wooden shutters closed on their shop. A child walking through a narrow alleyway under the mountain's long shadow. The people of Pompeii had absolutely no idea they were living through the final seconds of their world. Then, in 79 CE, Vesuvius erupted. The world Pompeii knew was about to disappear beneath ash and volcanic debris. At dawn, the mountain tore open in a sudden, violently catastrophic explosion. A huge, dark column of ash and volcanic material rocketed into the sky. The citizens, looking upward in sheer terror, were plunged into absolute chaos as ash began to fall, burying the streets, the temples, the baths, and all that vibrant life we've just explored. Which leaves us with this incredibly powerful paradox to think about. If Mount Vesuvius had never awakened, if it had remained just a quiet, beautiful mountain in the background of a thriving Roman city, would we know anything about these ordinary lives at all? The catastrophe that destroyed Pompeii and its people is the exact singular reason their daily routines, their art, and their humanity are immortalized for us today. Definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring the history hidden just beneath the surface.